Ghazi, welcome to Singapore, man.
What's up, guys?
Yeah. First time here?
First time in Asia.
One of those Americans who's never been to Asia.
This is amazing.
Oh, fucking hell. So excuse my French. Is there any French people in the room? Sorry. So Ghazi, company is 9 years. Did we get the title right? Label of the future?
I'd like to think I'm the label of the present, but I don't mind being the label of the future too. So.
The now and the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone found that funny. No, seriously, the future as in, and one of the things that I think is really important about how you are approaching the company is the art form and the people behind the art form, as opposed to the tech and all these other things. And we'll talk about tech as well in a minute. But what I've seen it firsthand. I've seen how you are with artists. You met two artists that I know of here that you've never met before, and there was a room of business people around, but you just went straight for the artists. Your culture towards why the artist is so important for you.
I mean, it's important for me on multiple levels. I think the first thing is that I started off as an artist myself many years ago, and I spent most of my life in the studio. And I think oftentimes people put the business before the music, but the reality of it is this is the music business, and music comes before the business. And I feel like building that relationship is just extremely important. I think it's the heart and soul of the relationship is having that personal relationship with the partner or the artist or the label or whatever you want to call it. We prefer to call them partners.
Yeah. So you like getting in very early with the artists, finding them or working with them because you come from an artist background yourself. Maybe you want to share a little bit about how your background from an artist perspective is important.
Yeah, I mean, I spent most of my life in the studio, and so early on when I started Empire, early on we were a distribution company, and many of the relationships that we developed with the artists were rooted from those years in the studio. And so, excuse me, when I started the company, it was a natural transition because the people that we were diving into business with, we already had a personal relationship with that was predated the business aspect of everything. So it was a very natural, organic relationship to the marketplace.
And you've spoken about the artist energy and how important that is. Obviously, because you know the artist, you engage and understand their energy. But how important is that energy in the development of an artist, the artist's success, their energy? How important is that? Yeah,
I know we were discussing this earlier today, but I feel that the artist is like the epicenter, and excuse me, tied into that epicenter is all the different energy streams, and the best way to explain it is it's kind of like a spoke and hub, right? And you have a hub and you have its spokes, and the different spokes are the different energy streams, and those energy streams might be touring, or they might be merchandising or social media, or it might be Spotify playlisting, it could be blog posts, it could be your energy might come from YouTube, and so from radio, from television. So all of that to say that you create energy simply to create audience. And so what you're essentially trying to do is create as many of those energy streams as possible and tie them back in all into one, into one epicenter. And then the more they tie together, the better chance for success.
Let's talk maybe about one artist. I mean, you've worked with people like Kendrick Lamar, Snoop Dogg, XXX, Tiger, something we talked about recently. I mean, talk a little bit about your relationship with an artist such as Tiger, for instance, and how things are happening for him.
Yeah, I mean, we were working on and off with Tiger for a few years, and then he decided to do a major label deal because of his relationship with Kanye West and a couple other people that were in his circle. And again, back to the energy stream thing, the music business is just like any other business, and it's all about your synergy, your chemistry, and your relationship to the company that you work with. And oftentimes, it's a game of styles. An artist might flourish or prosper with one person and not flourish or prosper with another company. And we went so as far as to buy him out of his contract of the label that he was with, and he was pretty dormant for a couple years. He was going through some quiet time, and now, what I think 8 months into the deal, we have one of the biggest records in the world. He has a song called Taste. It was #1 on YouTube for a few days. Song is quickly headed for 1 billion streams. It's already almost 3 times platinum in the United States.
Sorry, that was 1 billion streams, you said?
Yeah.
Fuck. But you have he's got a direct line to you. I mean, you're on WhatsApp with him, you're chatting with him all the time.
We have a group text. We have several different group texts with Tyga. Some include radio people, some include the publicists, and some of them are just me and some of the executive staff at Empire, and we're constantly bouncing ideas off each other, coming up with different unorthodox ways to market, and different ways to create the energy streams that we discussed. And we have already teed up what the next 6 months are going to look like.
Yeah, cool. I mean, let's not go too deep with XXX, but that must have been a sad moment as well with him passing, and because you invested heavily in his time, your time and effort into him.
Yeah,
has been, and it must have hit you.
Yeah, that was a tragic loss, because that was somebody that over the course of a year and a half, your relationship goes deeper than just music, and you spend a lot of personal time together, and yeah, it definitely hit home.
Sad way to go as well. And it's funny, because even in London and in Asia, people I speak to, parents of kids that, oh my God, he's so important. I mean, an American friend of mine here, 14-year-old son, 14-year-old daughter, it's like, my God, he's gone.
The culture, just a very culturally viable artist.
Yeah.
And very relatable and very representative of the voice of the youth of this generation.
What's your approach towards A&R? I mean, we haven't quite determined whether you're a label or not, but you're doing it, you're a music company of the future, or you're a music company of now and the future, but your approach to A&R, what is your personal approach? I mean, again, I've seen you with artists. You're right next to them.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people try to, do you guys mind if I stand up? I don't like sitting down.
Go ahead, man.
I can't think when I sit down. So
I'm going to do the same.
Nima's here, and when we're in our meetings in the office, we walk around and pace, and it's a creative company. I like to do creative.
Exactly. We've got 30 minutes to be creative.
So I mean, the approach to A&R has never been. A lot of people like to think A&R is like an exact science. You just dial up some data analytics, throw the analytics on a dashboard, and then just make a decision on who you're going to sign. And that's just not reality, because oftentimes what's transpiring in the culture might not be available in analytics yet. And sometimes what's transpiring on a cultural level might not even be detected in analytics, period, ever. You might go to a club and hear a record that becomes the biggest record of the night, and then you might go back and it might have a terrible Spotify skip rate. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's not a hit record, right? And so when I say it's not an exact science, I think it's because it's an always evolving science. A few years ago, people were looking at Vine. Vine is now out of business. Snapchat was the most viable piece of social media, and now Instagram has kind of started to move into that lane. So, I mean, you're always looking at an evolving landscape, and you're adapting the way you work as a company to what's transpiring in the landscape. So it's a game of adaptation, and we're in the fastest, most fluid time in the music industry ever.
So data, we've talked about, it's not a science when it comes to working with artists and finding talent. How do you find music and find talent?
I mean, it's everything from somebody sending me a DM on Instagram to a referral from another artist. Oftentimes, some of our best A&R sources are attorneys that we've done deals with for many years. It could be something as simple as popping into a club, hearing a record, Shazamming it, coming to a conference like this, meeting the way I met your artist. It comes from all different.
Well, I think that's the other aspect I've noticed about you guys, is that because you come from the artist fraternity, you were making music, you come from the production, the engineering and making music, that you have that affinity to having those conversations. Sure. Unlike some people where it's like, well, good luck with your career and, we hope you do well. But, you're actually directly connected to the conversation. Sure. So your background in production and engineering, surely, that's not gone away, is it?
No, I still show up to the studio pretty regularly. We spend a lot of time in the studio with artists. In fact, we're building a pretty state-of-the-art facility in San Francisco so that we can not only sign great material, but we can actually develop it from scratch. I think that a lot of times the way the music business is now and things are moving so quickly, rather than creating, people are just latching on to what's already been created and just buying in. And that's cool. I mean, I understand that, but I would love to also create from scratch. I think that's really important. That's how you kind of create a sound, and I don't only want to fuel culture. I want to perpetuate and create culture from scratch.
Well, that's the whole thing about music is culture, isn't it? It's not and culture; it's all part of it.
Yeah.
So you spend time in the studio still, and you're going to video shoots, you're involved in photo shoots. You take part in all that as well.
Yeah, still sometimes. Yeah, I mean, he pops in a lot. I pop in a lot. For our higher tier clients or label partners that we fall into more of our label division, we do a lot of really high-end creative mapping. We're just mapping out things months in advance.
Let's quickly talk about label partners. Universal. Tell us a little bit about how that happened and what that is, what your deal is with Universal.
Yeah, sure. So with Universal, I have a relationship with some of the labels over there, Interscope and Def Jam, and oftentimes as a label we compete with a lot of their A&Rs for signings, and we found in many situations that their A&Rs were signing talent really early, and then the label wasn't prepared to put a lot of that talent into the marketplace. And so I went and worked out a situation with them where if they were signing things that didn't make sense for them to move on right away, that they could just shift it over to us and we would move it into our distribution division.
So Lucien Grange came to you.
Yeah, so we're incubating a lot of talent for Universal, correct.
What's it like working with someone like Lucien? I mean, coming to a smaller company, the big monster of Universal. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I think it's pretty amazing that I get to tap into somebody that has 30, 40 years of knowledge of the industry, and then I kind of can draw on that knowledge base and then apply things the way I do them. And put my little twist on it and kind of evolve it and integrate it into the way we do business.
And you've only just begun with the Universal as well, a couple of months ago?
It's been about a year, but we didn't really announce it until a few months ago.
Okay, right.
It was kind of more of a proof of concept first, and then it worked out, and we decided to broaden it and then announce it.
So everyone would say that you're known for urban, you're known for hip-hop, but there's a lot more to Empire when it comes to roster, isn't there?
Yeah, we do really well with a lot of Latin music. We do really well with reggae. We've been nominated for Reggae Grammys a couple times, won it once in the last couple years. And then now we're starting to dive into a lot of Southeast Asian hip-hop. Pop is starting to grow.
What was the artist I showed you earlier that
Rich Brian?
What was his name? I couldn't pronounce his name correctly.
Oh, Olamide. Yeah,
Olamide,
we're doing a lot of Afrobeat as well. So a lot of West African music.
Yeah, amazing. And you say pop as well is another area that you're...
Yeah, pop is definitely a growing genre for us as well, yeah.
Towards the end,
I think the reason why pop is also a growing genre is urban is increasingly becoming pop. And there's becoming a major intersection of pop and urban that's kind of just melting together.
So there comes a moment with an artist where you have to have that horrible conversation and talk about contracts. But you have a very different approach as well when it comes to contracts. Talk a little bit about the sort of different deals that you do with artists.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is that traditionally in the music business, people have tried to apply a come one, come all approach, and I don't think that really works with the way the landscape is today. I think that you have to custom tailor everything to every individual case, and we oftentimes look at what the artist is, what their needs are, what the next few years is going to look like, and what it is that they're trying to accomplish, develop a deal structure that makes sense for that particular artist in that particular situation. So our deals can range from everything from something completely non-exclusive as an entry point into doing business, and all the way to something that's like a full JV partnership, And then sometimes they can be a hybrid of the two, where it's kind of like a JV and kind of like a distribution deal, and it falls somewhere in the middle.
Well,
or it's like a label services deal, what people would call a label services deal. But you know, we do everything from like I said, a non-exclusive deal all the way to a full-blown JV.
And as a label in London, I'm really happy with the deal that I have with you because of the deal itself, and the fact that it's non-exclusive. It allows me to duck out if I want. But people don't duck out, do they? They stay with you.
I mean, our philosophy has always been that human nature dictates that if you treat people well, they'll just hang around. And I think most people just want to be treated well. Transparency, communication, reporting structure, paying people on time, answering the simple questions, answering the hard questions that sometimes people don't want to answer. So, yeah, a lot of it just comes down to communication.
So another thing that I found really interesting when you mentioned is the dealing with lawyers. You said that you actually, whilst you're dealing with the artists, you're also mixing with the lawyers and mixing with different people.
Yeah. I attend a lot of lawyer conferences just because I feel I'm a very personable person. So if I'm in business with somebody, I want to shake their hands. I want to look them in the eye and build a personal relationship with them. And I mean, over the course of the last 9 years, we've done a multitude of deals with so many different lawyers that I've only seen their names on email addresses, and it just feels very impersonal. And so oftentimes I'll just fly out to either their conferences, or I'll fly out to places where I know that I can just sit down and spend time with them and build that personal relationship, because you also want to be top of mind, you know, when they you know, they engage a new artist and they start working a new artist into the marketplace and they're looking for deals. They're Empire's top of mind. You know, we treat them well, we're transparent, we respond, so we make the lawyers look good in front of their own artists.
That's very important. Let's sort of change track a little bit, but obviously still bearing in mind the philosophy of the company and you personally with artists, but technology. You know, we talked a little bit about data, a little bit about, you know, it's not a science to a certain extent, but your background, first of all, is that you really understand the nuts and bolts. You know, you work for various companies in tech yourself, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I worked in the .com era of the music business, which was the late 90s, early 2000s. I spent a lot of time with MP3 technology and compression and networks and servers and anything that would pay the bills, really, honestly, so that I could make it to the studio at night and work on music. But over that period of time, I was able to acquire a pretty diverse skill set that I was then later on able to pivot off of that skill set and then combine that with all the music knowledge and all the music relationships I have and build a very tech-oriented company that's rooted not only in music culture but in technology as well. Especially when we were talking about the science of, you know, of the music business. So
people talk a lot about the convergence of music and tech. Maybe you could elaborate a little bit more about how you feel about that, whether there is a convergence, whether it's side by side, you know, and how important the tech is to the music.
I mean, there's a convergence at every level between music and tech, from mobile devices to desktops to iPads to the way the music is created, the way it's distributed, the way it's accounted for. I mean, it's all the overlap and the synergy is at an all-time high, and I see it continuing in that direction.
Is tech changing the way you launch artists when you release campaigns, how it's delivering?
I mean, it really depends, right? From an A&R standpoint, if you have a traditional artist that has a large touring base and they're still selling a lot of physical CDs, then you're going to treat them a lot different than an artist that's rooted in a large Instagram following and, you know, a huge YouTube subscribership and a big, you know, I don't know if it had a dance attached to it or if it went viral on YouTube. I mean, everything is, you have to judge every product, every situation, every artist for that individual moment in time, and then you have to figure out how to apply the science of many, 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 many years of experience and say what's the best opportunity for success for this particular project or this particular situation. So we never apply a cookie cutter approach is basically what I'm trying to say. You know, there's some fundamental things that you do. For every artist, you hire a publicist, you hire a digital strategist, you set a release date, you might do an instant gratification track, you got a leak record that you warm up the marketplace with. Those are like fundamentals. But then you kind of start getting into the more trickier, more fancy stuff along the way.
And you got a lot of this in-house, you know, yeah?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
So, but you still hire externally for some projects and some campaigns?
Yeah, sometimes you hire a support structure for particular situations where an artist might need a specific flavor of publicity, or they might need a specific flavor of digital marketing. For example, if we're putting out a record that's very dance-centric, and it's there's dances that are being created around the record and they're going viral, we might enlist marketers and influencers to go out and create dances for us. Or we have a whole marketing division where we're creating memes and we're setting those memes viral on Instagram. And we have a digital marketing department that's often targeting ads at different artists that are relatable, either in different countries, different demographics, true view ads, bumpers, end cards. Like, there's all these different lingo in the music industry that you can use. Like, something that's really big on Spotify right now is creating vertical videos. I don't even know if those are available ex-US yet, but we're all creating vertical videos now that are being pushed into the playlists, and they create a more organic relationship to the artist. They're just a different version of a music video. But there's always something transpiring in the marketplace. You have to be a student of the game, and then you have to take what it is that you learn as a student and apply that science, and then become a pro at it and continue to move on, So.
Well, as we've determined that you are the label of the future now, let's talk about the future. Let's talk about what next. And you've been through a lot, Ghazi. I mean, the pain of the past, and it's been painful at times, I'm sure. But
yeah, I mean, we started a rap label in the same year that Warner Brothers shut their urban division down.
Good timing.
So people told us we were crazy. I mean, with change comes opportunity.
So you've had to learn from scratch and be self-dependent. I mean, you're 100%. It's you basically, as you brought.
Yeah, I mean, I like to tell people that the autonomy has been the wind in our sail. We wake up with an idea, we try it, it doesn't work, no harm, no foul, we come up with another idea. And so we're constantly trying to re-engineer our approach to the marketplace, because things are always changing. I mean, I remember 2 years ago we were signing artists because they were going viral on Musical.ly, and now Musical.ly has become pretty much an obsolete platform. So it's an ever-changing landscape.
I suppose really it's important how you react to that.
Yeah.
And how
I think the most exciting thing now, though, is that increasingly we're going into an economy that's becoming more and more global, and genre lines are becoming more and more blurred, and you're seeing a cross-section of artists that before were boxed into a certain area that no longer are boxed in, and can flourish in other areas of the world where they might not have been able to touch before. It's pretty amazing what streaming is doing to the world.
Well, you said this, national goes international, really. That's the other thing. So, I mean, talking about international, you're here in Singapore. Why did you determine to come to Singapore this time?
I mean, we've been doing a lot of work with Southeast Asian artists for the past couple years. We were the distributor for 88 Rising. So we were working with like Rich Brian and Joji and the Higher Brothers, and we have a Keith Ape release coming up soon. And I'm leaving to Jakarta tomorrow. I'm going to Beijing on Saturday. I just felt it was really important to, again, touch the soil where these people come from and really understand their background and understand what their motivation is to create the music. I think from a hip-hop perspective, it's really exciting to see a genre that I've worked on since I was 14 years old become a world-dominant genre, and become a voice for the youth, and become a mechanism for livelihood. You're seeing people coming from all walks of life that are generating livelihood through music, and that's really exciting.
A couple of days in Singapore, a couple of days in Jakarta, you're finding these days very important. You can feel the city, you can feel what's going on in these places as well, but yeah. Other markets outside of Asia, Europe is important.
Yeah, we're diving into the UK now. We're setting up offices in the UK. We do have some foothold in Holland a little, and we're also really excited about Latin America. We've been working heavily in the Latin market for almost 8 years now, and that's been a really fruitful one for us.
Well, Ghazi, we're really happy you made the decision to come and see us in Singapore. I hope you guys have had a good 30 minutes. We've run out of time.
Are we doing Q&A or no?
We were going to do Q&A, but I do believe that we have to. I think maybe it's a good idea. Well, let's do a couple of questions. Let's actually take a couple of questions.
Did you when looking at? There's a microphone coming.
Yeah.
Hey, how's it going? Hey, when looking at a new artist to sign to your label, how important is the live aspect? Do you always check out the artist live before you look to sign them, or is that only sometimes?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, it depends if they're a performance-driven artist, right? If you're a very performance-driven artist, then I would love to know what your live show looks like. Absolutely. But, you know, it just really depends on what type of artist it is.
We get Sarah.
Sarah, question, yeah?
Hi, my name's Sarah Jane from South Africa. I run a management company over there. We work with a number of A-listers, of which one is Zakes Bantwini sitting in the audience. I want to know, from a co-management agreement structure, what is your take on that, looking at developing your act in new territories, A, and B, from a publishing perspective?
Can you hold your mic up a little? It's so echoey, I can't hear the question.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, co-management. I'm from South Africa, developing country, tapping artists into new territories. What is your take on co-management? How would you structure those deals if you would at all? And then the second question.
Okay. I think the first question was pretty complicated.
How would you structure a co-management?
Yeah. Do you mean a co-management deal in respects of because you're trying to move the artist into other territories?
Yeah.
From a structure standpoint, there's so many different ways you can structure a co-management agreement. It depends what the primary management agreement is, right? Are you just taking, you know, some management agreements are all across the board. Some management agreements are just for touring. Some are for royalties. Some are for publishing. It just really depends. But from a co-management perspective, my advice would be that if you're looking to move into another territory, you just need to find somebody that's equally passionate about the project as you.
Okay, cool. Thanks. I
And
had a
then
second
what was the
question,
second question?
but I think I'll ask you later because it's a little bit complicated too.
Okay, no problem.
We're going to take 2 more questions. There's a guy right at the back.
Hi there. I heard you just mention you're heading to Beijing soon. Also, you mentioned Keith Ape.
Stand up, please. Sorry.
Yeah, you
See you
mentioned
then.
you were heading to Beijing soon, and Keith Ape as well. I was wondering what kind of connections you have with hip-hop in China, because obviously it's quite complicated, the government's stance on it with what recently happened. I just wondered how you're kind of like tackling hip-hop in China, or if you have it all already.
I mean, that's why I'm headed to Beijing, to establish that you know, our philosophical approach to how we're going to enter the marketplace. We don't have much contact to hip-hop artists in China, but we want to. And in order to understand the marketplace, there's no better way to understand it than to actually go there and just show up and find out what's going on. You can read all day, I can ask questions all day, but if I don't go there myself, it's just not the same.
Can I see some hands?
Cool.
Ghazi, you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. I appreciate you guys having me here. I think it's amazing that music has brought me to Singapore, and this is an amazing conference, and I'll probably start coming back every year, so I appreciate everybody. Thank you so much.
Let's hear it for Ghazi Shami. Thank you.
What an amazing chat. How about another round of applause for Ghazi and Graham? Awesome. Ghazi, you've also just won Best Sneakers in the House. You've just beaten me, mate. Best Sneakers in the House. All right, so the programming is not over, but we're going to take a short break. In the ballroom, we have football's future in Asia, followed by gaming matters. And here in the pavilion, we're hosting Twitter fronts from 4 p.m. So enjoy.